Okay, hello everyone, welcome. Today we are in our 22nd Rural Cafe about rural equity. I'm really glad to be here, to be responsible for coordinating this session. Um, Today we start introducing ourselves, and then we will chat about this really important topic. So, my name is Bianca Silveira. I'm a Brazilian medical student. I'm in my 5th year, and I was with Mayara since the first Rural Cafe, and it's an honor to be here. Mayara was not able to be here. She was the one responsible for creating this amazing project. And in name of her and Amber that were with us since the beginning, and Veronica as well, I really thank you all for participating here on the live conversation, and thank you everyone that is watching us on YouTube. And also, if you want to contribute, please give your comments on our Facebook event, or you can use the hashtag RuralCafe on Twitter that Amber will be coordinating, and on Facebook, Karine will be coordinating as well. So we start introducing ourselves. I would like to ask Amber, could you start?
Hello everyone, my name is Amber. I am now a junior doctor. So many years of medical school. I'm working in South Wales, and I have an interest in rural medicine because I'm originally from the Caribbean, and that's why I'm quite interested in the topic of equity, because we do have a problem with distribution of healthcare service provision within my country, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and experiences.
Thank you, Karine. Could you?
Hello everyone, my name is Karine. I'm a medical student in the last year in South Brazil, in PUC, RS, the same university with Bianca. I participate in some rural cafes with Mayara and Bianca, and I think this project is very important for share some experience around the world. And so I will coordinate the Facebook. If anyone have some questions, please send for us.
Thank you. Rick, could you introduce yourself? Maybe he's not here, so let's go with Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia Terhune. I am in Michigan in the United States. I am a graduate student at Michigan State University, and I also work for Michigan State University as the Assistant Director of Rural Community Health for the College of Human Medicine. So my work is a lot of things, but I work to recruit, train, and retain rural doctors. And we have a significant healthcare shortage of rural physicians in the United States across all rural counties. So this is something that I am very interested in, and equity is really important to me in a variety of arenas, especially when it comes to rural healthcare. So happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Julia. Rick, could you introduce yourself?
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to be in and out because I'm babysitting my grandson at the moment. But I've had a long-standing interest in rural health. I started off in the UK, trained in the rural practice, came to the States and set up a residency training program. It folded after 3 years because of funding cuts, and so I went into traditional academia. I'm now at the end of my career, and I'm now working in a rural community again. It's very interesting to come back. I wrote an article about my experience on LinkedIn, and it hit a wave, and I'll share the link to you if you haven't already seen it. I'm also writing about some blog posts about equity in general, and I just presented in Prague. And I'm doing some very short video clips focusing on the issue of equity as a way of generating network power to advocate for equity and planetary health. That's it.
Perfect, thank you. Yuri? No, sorry, we are not listening to you. No, not yet. Yeah, probably your phone's try again. Not yet. While you, yeah, keep trying, no problem. Yeah, yeah. Maybe Caio, could you introduce yourself while Yuri is setting his mic? I think that maybe Caio is not hearing us. Yuri, I don't know what happened. We were listening to you before, but we are not listening anymore. Okay, no problem. We can start. Yeah, okay. We can start talking and then we set it up. And maybe Caio, he said he would finish some stuff so soon he must be here. So I really would like to thank you all. And firstly, I would like to say that I think that this space is absolutely important and interesting, principally because it mix and get together students and experienced doctors. And we have Rick and Julia. Thank you very much for being here. And I completely agree about the importance of this theme. And I was just taking a look on the internet about World Health Organization definition of equity, and it says that equity refers to fair opportunity for everyone to attain their full health potential regardless demographic, social, economic, and geographic status. So I think that this definition is all about we can talk today. So we may start talking about if we think that in our countries, is there rural equity? Are we close to it? What do you think about your countries? Someone would like to start adding something?
If I understand the question correctly, you're asking what you think the goals of our country, the country that we represent or that we're a part of, the goals for health equity in rural areas.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
So based off of what the current GOP legislation in the United States, the current administration of the United States is rolling out for healthcare policies and revamping the Affordable Care Act, it would seem to me, and I'm speaking personally and not representing any of the institutions I work for, that the current administration doesn't care at all about equity, especially for rural communities. If the current proposal for the healthcare bill comes into effect in the United States, their majority rural populations will lose any sort of healthcare coverage that they have had for the last 4 years. We saw from 2013 to 2015, the number of people in rural America that had health insurance went from 76% or 73, I might have that number wrong, to 86%. So we saw a significant jump with the healthcare bill that President Obama had rolled out in the number of people with healthcare. And that was really good for not only their health, but also for the long-term sustainability of rural hospitals. And now we're very concerned going to happen to those individuals because the current policy that's being presented in the United States really shows that only the rich are going to be able to afford healthcare and going to be able to have healthcare. And that's going to leave everybody in rural America just decimated. It's terrifying to think what will happen in the United States if this goes through.
Yeah, definitely. It's terrifying, this situation. I would like, Rick, if you could add something about you are in USA as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, and I couldn't concur more strongly that actually things are going to get much worse in the States. But I think the issue should be seen as a generalizable phenomenon because the USA is probably the best example in the world about how not to do health equities. But there's a lot of learning lessons, and I've just put a URL in about one article I wrote about why healthcare reform is doomed to fail the people with a little video clip, and I can send another one too. But I could talk about at this length, but I'm going to keep it short because my grandson is going to be calling me shortly. So anyway, can you hear me? I'm calling out because I have to attend to my grandson. Okay.
Okay, no problem. Just a second, guys. I missed my phones before I'm setting it now. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Would you like to try to introduce yourself now, Yuri?
Can you listen me now?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm Yuri. I'm 23. I'm from Rio, Brazil, and I'm on 4th year now. I actually don't have much experience in family medicine, except because I've seen some practical the internship here in Rio that has been growing, and I've been to some rural areas of Brazil. The first time was in 2013 when I went to a village in Espírito Santo, and there I met the woman, the nurse that was responsible for growing the family health strategy in the area. And like at that moment, I didn't really realize the importance of that program, but then she explained me all the difficulties that she had to grow the program in that area, with the indigenous, like the indigenous people and the poor people, because there were many farms as well, and the poor conditions of work there. And I'm trying to listen a bit of your experience with the projects you have. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if Caio is here. Caio, are you listening to us? Okay, I think that he's not here yet. To talk about Brazil, I think that what I can say, I'm not the expertise in this subject, but being in my 5th year and everything that I have experienced and study, I think that here in Brazil we have lots of policies that they try to reduce the differences. We have policies for indigenous people, we have policies for rural people, we have lots of policies. The possibility of making them true, of putting them on practice, is different from the theory. That's for sure. I have been in an indigenous area here in my city, that is Porto Alegre as well, and although we have a policy that indigenous should have different treatment and different and special situations, in reality here in our city this was not really happening on practice. So I think that for sure law and policies, they really can help us to try to reach the equity, but I think that maybe it's greater than that. And I don't know, Karini would like to add something. I don't know.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. My first contact with rural areas in Brazil was in the end of my first years of graduation when I went to a small city about 5 million inhabitants in a rural area in Piauí. And this was very important to me because I could to see the big difference from the big city and a small city in the rural area. In the city, don't has any doctor. The structure is very bad, and the people who live in the city, it's very difficult for them for access health system. So. It is different, I think. Rural areas, which is near big cities, and the rural areas more far, because Brazil is very big. So we have rural areas around Porto Alegre, and sometimes it's easy for these people come to a big city and access some health programs, but for some people this is very difficult. It's very far. They need access by fair or by, for example, in Amazonia. So I think for Brazil, the equity it's a big challenge for us. It is so big, and it's very different in all parts of the country. I think is it, and I think it's important to say that a lot of doctors or others health uh, workers don't want to work in rural areas. And as well, it's very difficult sometimes for people who live in rural areas access the universities for study and back for rural areas and work after that. So I think it is a challenge as well here in Brazil.
Yeah, I suppose that Julia must struggle with the policies to try to keep doctors in rural, and I think that it's completely into the idea of equity and giving the opportunity to everyone to have access to health, right?
I think I completely agree. I think that's absolutely the case. And it's hard to recruit people because oftentimes they're very enticed by the city and people think that they're going to have a better in the city. Perhaps it's the same in Brazil. They think they're going to have a better quality of life, more career opportunities. And while that may be the case for some, I think that you can have a beautiful life and many career opportunities in rural areas throughout the world. It kind of just depends on what your mission is. So I'm always trying to get people our age, who are in their like early part of their career to consider rural areas as part of their career choices because I want to break down that stereotype that the only place you can have a good life or a good career is in the city. So that's part of my soapbox.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Okay, I think that Caio is on now. Caio, are you listening to us? Caio? Okay. Amber, would you like to add something about the UK or maybe about Amazonia that Karini mentioned? And we know that you had some experience here in our country. What could you maybe add to us?
I think
My experience is on the northeast of Brazil, and the experience here is amazing. The rural areas of the northeast of Brazil have unique characteristics. The people they have an honor and they live for what they say, and many times when they have medical care they don't accept treatment, and this is a trouble to us here to make a bond to the people and make them see the doctor as someone who is willing to treat them. And this is really a challenge here, but we have some experience of successful medical care, and the strategies to that be possible are as wide as vast as you could think. And we use sociology, and we use uh, other strategies to try and make those people to trust on us. And it's amazing. It's amazing. I will listen more to you and see what we can discuss.
Could you introduce yourself? Because maybe you did it before, but your mic was off, so we just started listening to you now. Could you do it now? Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. My name is Caio Abrantes. I am a second year student of medical school, and I am from Rio Grande do Norte, Brazil. And here we are in the northeast of Brazil. We have continent-sized country, and every region of our country has unique characteristics. And in rural areas, these differences are very, 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 they are very different. And between the capital of our regions and the countryside, we have a tremendous difference. And it's amazing to meet those people and meet their needs and try to do something about it. And the projects and the facilities, the medical facilities on the countryside, they are really amazing heroes, amazing doctors, and I really look up to them. This is it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Amber, could I ask you to talk now?
Yeah, so I'll start talking about Wales first, and then compare it to what I saw when I was in Atenshab for my elective. So in Wales, it's kind of a mixed area, so it's not that big of a country, but we do have quite a big difference between the city, which tends to have centralized healthcare in the teaching hospitals, and the countryside, which tends to either have a district general hospital or hospitals. So what tends to happen is, of course, everyone gets the same service provision under the National Health Service. Healthcare is always free at the point of care, but teaching hospital, you have much easier access to specialist care, to the accident and emergency and things like that. If you live further away, you can still get access to it. It's still free for you, but the traveling time there. So in terms of equity,
your connection is a little bit bad. It's cutting your audio. Maybe could you speak a little bit slower, so even cutting we may understand what you're saying.
Okay. So yeah, I was saying that basically, if you live in the city near the big teaching hospital, although it doesn't matter what geography you live in, you still have the same services will be available to you. It's a lot easier if you live near the teaching hospital than if you live in the countryside. From a geographic factor, so your nearest center may actually be hours away, compared to if you live in the city where it's sort of relatively nearer. So emergency medicine placement in the north of Wales in a city called Bangor. And there, the major trauma center is actually in England. So people will either have to go by ambulance or be airlifted. It doesn't cost anything to the patient, but you do have to include that time of transfer, the availability of those services into your healthcare provision. There aren't necessarily any policies in place to prevent that, because from what it seems from my point of view, you're allowed to live wherever you like, but living wherever, if you know it's far away from a hospital, you have to, that is kind of on your responsibility, not the healthcare service provider. What they tend to focus on is very good emergency transport. So in Wales, we're very fortunate we have an air ambulance, which is 100% charity run. But the government have now started using it as a training post. So they now do have a doctor on board with them. And we have our ambulance crew and all the standard emergency transport. The other thing about equity in Wales is that obviously everything is controlled by money. So they will not provide a service if there are not enough people who use it. But as we all know from our experience in rural, a couple hundred people using a service, it does make a lot of difference to that one person who's missing out. And that's what I noticed when I was in Amsterdam. For example, whenever we do communities that were even more rural, so they're sort of once a week, once every 2 weeks. And although it would be nice if they did have a doctor, there's not enough people to justify the cost of a doctor in that area. So I thought it was interesting. I think the way that it was handled was probably the best for that situation. I couldn't think of any better alternative. But one issue it did raise is whether or not you should encourage rural communities to move closer to their health center, or should the health center disperse more to them? Because there seems to be a growing trend to have more centralized healthcare. So instead of having each hospital have a specific department, you have one unit that does everything. But I don't know.
Okay, yeah, maybe. But yeah, thank you for your contributions, Amber. I would like to know of you and from Karini if you have any inputs from Twitter or Facebook. No? Something from Twitter, Amber? No? Okay. Rick, I know that you are enthusiastic. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So, if our first question was about how is the equity, rural equity in our countries, when we spoke a little bit about it, we can go to our second question. How can medical students and junior doctors generate network power for equity and planetary health? This is a really good question. Thank you for that, Rick. And I think that maybe Rural Cafe is already a really good network power. And I think that also social media can help it as well. We have SoMe Ambassadors is a website. I can put the link here as well after that. That is also about young doctors interested in family medicine, and is also a network. So you can change ideas and try to change experiences and find strategies to deal with the difficulties. Okay, thank you, Amber. We will wait for him then. And I think that one of the things, I had an experience in England. I spent 1 year there, and I used their public health system as well. And what I can say is that even we are from different countries, we all are human beings, we are with our difficulties and weaknesses, and even in different countries we may have similar problems. So when we have a strong network and we can talk and Rick, your grandson is so cute. I think that if we can change ideas, we can also talk about strategies that if it works here in Brazil, it may work in other countries as well. And this, especially for doctors and young or experienced doctors. For medical students, I think that our role is to talk a little bit more about the importance of rural and how we can try to fit it. The things that Amber was saying before about should we encourage people to live closer to health centers, or should we bring more health to the um, faraway places, is a good question. But I think that maybe we could talk a little bit more about how can we go to far places to work. Um, like to add something? May you try to speak?
Can you hear me? I changed the computer. Maybe trying to make
Much better.
maybe trying to call other doctors, other people, doctors are not, to know about equity, to know what it means, what it can do to a specific community, and try to involve them, to advocate for the people who are in need, is a way to call other people to act. Maybe if we try and remember about our first experience on rural health, we will know that somebody told us about that, and we start to love it, and we start to try and do something. So maybe the first step is call people to work with us about anything, about equity and about any other issue we have to face. And I guess because I am only a second year student and I am just starting the clinical part of medical school, and I am already in rural areas, and I am already trying and helping other doctors to do something. So maybe this is a way. Maybe I don't know if it's an efficient way yet, but it's doing something, and it's doing something great, uh, as I can say about it.
Okay, thank you, Caio. I can see that Dr. David is here. Hello, David. Would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. So I wasn't aware that the Rural Cafe was happening, but I happened to be mountain biking in a place where there's 4G. Hopefully you can hear me okay, better than normally at home. So I just stopped. That's Aaron Willis. So I just thought I'd pop in, say hello, and been following some of you until I got the link. So can you hear me okay?
It's a little bit, I don't know how to say this in English, sorry. It's not really loud, but we can hear you. I didn't understand. Could you explain again, where are you? Maybe his connection is not that well.
From what I heard, he said that he was out mountain biking and happened to get 4G on his phone.
Okay, thank you, Amber. I think that maybe his connection has stopped. I don't know. Yeah. Please, Amber, you can add anytime. Go on.
Okay. Yes, so I think someone said something that made me remember. So one of the ways that med students, oh yes, I remember now. Kyle was saying that we should start talking about equity in rural areas. So one of the ways that Wales has countered this problem was actually opening the medical school that I went to, Swansea Medical School. So because we're a little bit further away from the capital in Cardiff, our placement area tends to be a little bit more rural. We go a bit further afield. And as a result of that, Swansea medical students have slightly more exposure to rural than students in big cities. especially because Swansea also offers a rural and remote health and medical education track, which improves your exposure to rural even further. So one of the ways that medical students can help with equity is basically because medical students bring a certain amount of money to an area, they can improve the services through sort of an indirect way. So by having a medical school in a particularly rural area, but still ensuring that you have good quality medical education, making sure that students have more exposure to rural from an earlier stage in their medical career, that can help with equity because you would have more people interested in rural, more exposure, and then medical students, there's also apparently some correlation that they tend to stay where they qualified more often than not. So it can help with that problem as well with retention and recruitment.
Thank you, Amber. I totally agree with you. And it's really interesting to see how our cafes, they tend to come to a common subject that is about how to attract people to rural and all of these aspects, including how to show people how is the rural quality of life, how to improve the experiences of medical students in rural areas and medical curriculum that we had already a rural cafe about it, and all these subjects we always end talking a little bit of about it. But what I would like to say is that here in my state, in Carinis and Maiaras, Rio Grande do Sul, we have around 14 medical faculties, and as I have contacts medical students in each of them, and approximately only 2 of them have rural practice internships. So I'm happy to know that Caio and that Yuri had already some experiences in rural areas, but the fact is that here in Brazil, this is not really common, at least as I know. You can add anything as you want, but for sure this is also a really important aspect, and we can and we should try to improve it. I know that Mayara was a really important key person in her faculty to have more internship in rural area, and he fought for it and she got it. So I know that maybe for us medical students, not only in improving networking, as Rick said, but also in our own faculties, we may do our job as well. Please, Karine, yes, feel free.
Okay. So how Bianca said, we don't have much rural experience during the graduation and medical graduation here. If you want to do something, we need to looking for programs or looking for some doctors who can receive us for see the work in rural areas. I could spend a month here in Australia this year in a rural area in Australia, and I could know more about the medical education. And in Australia, in all medical schools, they spend about 6 weeks in some rural areas. And in Australia, more students have interesting for go and work in rural areas after finish the graduation. So I think this experience during the graduation is very important for us students know about this and know how works and see the difference and think about how we can improve the health in rural areas. As well, here in Brazil, we don't have a specific training for GPs in rural areas, and I think it is very important as well because we have here 2 years of GP training. And just think about urban areas. We don't talk about the specific things for work in rural areas. So I think this is very important as well. I could see in Australia specific programs for GPs who work in rural, and I think this is very important for the doctors.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Karini. And absolutely, it's about training as well, right? And also, we had a cafe about it. Sorry, Yuri and Kayo, if I said wrongly, but maybe it it just showed that we still have to improve it. Really, it's worse than we thought. Um, Okay, if Ricky was looking for a pipeline, if you find, just put there, please. And what I would like to say as well is that it's all about what we were talking about, right? How to improve and how to increase rural activities during the graduation, how to improve um, family medicine training, and how to improve the rural training specifically, and how to maintain and sustain doctors and GPs formed and finished in rural areas. And it's all about, yes, please, Yuri, add anything, go on.
I would like to talk about, like, when we first say that we must have practice in the rural area, but for this we must like put some pressure on people that are responsible for the curriculum. And for that, like, we students, we general, like junior medical and students, we must be aware, be conscious about that problem of the inequity. I would like to know if you guys have any like documentaries, any uh, movies or small videos that we could show in the universities, like to create some talks, and not only us here, but like if we show up those videos and those docs in the university, more people will understand about it and will be able to create the network to, like, to organize a new curriculum, for example. Do you guys know any movies, any docs like this?
Sorry, just to clarify, you're talking about documentaries about training in rural areas?
Yeah, about
Okay.
training
I
rural
can,
areas, about like rural health inequity, and why is it important to go to those areas, if there is anything about any material that we could use to show up in our universities.
Yeah, we'll probably have. Yeah, please, Amber, would you like to add? I think that we were going to say something.
I was going to say, in Wales, there is a campaign called Train, Work, Live. All the aspects of having a medical profession in Wales. So it shows you some of the rural areas as well as the urban areas. It doesn't specifically talk about equity because it was a recruitment campaign, but I think it's a start.
Okay. Yuri, what I can show you maybe is that I know that my area has done a video about the community that she had experiences in Rio Grande here. And she had a really, really big experience there. And I know that she produced a really important document and material in her university to introduce rural internship activities in her university, and she got it. I don't know if it's already happening, but she was doing it, so I can contact her, and I may put the links and everything on the Facebook event. Okay. And what I would like to say also, I don't know if you have this in the UK or in USA. I don't know if you could know that, Rick, but here in Brazil we have congresses about medical education. And actually, the next Brazilian Congress about medical education is going to happen this year here in Porto Alegre, that is our city. These congresses, they are absolutely important for us, Yuri, to press and to show people and to change and talk about the importance of it. I know that I have some material. I don't know where is it, but I will look for it for you to show how important is it. Actually, you can take a look at the book Tratado de Medicina de Família e Comunidade. I don't know if you have heard about it. Sorry that I spoke in Portuguese, people, but it's a Brazilian book about our family medicine. And there is a chapter about rural area, and you may find absolutely important information on that. And you can see that half of the population of the world, they live in rural areas, but only 25% of health workforce work in rural areas. So we still have lots of people that they don't have access, and that's what comes with the inequities. So you can have an idea of arguments that you can use if you talk with your friends and people from your university on that chapter. I think that it's important for us to read and study about it, because you start to have more arguments and you can explain why you think that that is important. Because we have that, we know that there is a lot of prejudice, right? Some of our classmates, they just don't want to go to rural areas. They think it's boring, they think it's difficult, and they just don't want to, because they just like the urban areas. So if we get to know this information, we can have more arguments when we speak about it, and we can do our job, our role as medical student, talking about it and trying to change our own faculties. Okay, Rick, I'm so sorry that you have to go. Please just have a word, please. Sorry, he left. Okay, sorry, Rick. His grandson was so cute, but he told me that he would have to be carrying him. Amber, could you explain the link that you put there?
Yeah, sure. So the Train Work Live campaign, as I mentioned, it was originally a recruitment campaign. So what they tried to do was, well, in Wales, one of the selling points is that you have the same kind of quality teaching hospitals, opportunities to train, but you do also have this really lovely coastline and mountains for hiking and all of this natural beauty. So they wanted to advertise that as a really good selling point to try and get more people into Wales. As a result of that, they've created this website that worklive.wales, and it basically shows, there's a quick video that shows you the variety of experiences you can have working and training as a medical professional in Wales. There's one for nurses and there's one for doctors. So there's the video, and there are also short interviews from training in Wales, talking about why they like it, why they came to Wales. Sometimes they're originally Welsh people who decided to stay in their communities, and it gives you a very good idea of the type of healthcare that we have in Wales.
Right, great. Thank you for adding that. I would like to know if Julia is still there. Julia, are you still there? Yeah? Okay.
Hi.
Hi, I would like to know as if you work with this topic of trying to maintain doctors in rural area, do you know any material that we can use to find arguments and information for helping medical students and young doctors to fight for it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my job. I absolutely. One of the things that we know from an academic standpoint, and I've been actually trying to find some scholarly articles that we've published, is the two greatest factors for having someone work for their career in rural areas is if they are from a rural area or if they train medically in a rural area. Um, and so a lot of that from a medical education standpoint, in my opinion, comes from recruitment. But we have a problem in the United States where across all medical schools, rural students only make up 6% of the medical student demographic, which is really, really a bad situation. And so going back to that topic of rural equity, one other thing that we see in the United States is we have a significant disparity in the number of people getting higher education. Um, I'm looking right now, and only 19% of all persons from rural areas in the United States have a bachelor's degree or a college degree, and that really puts a hindrance on that first goal, which is to get people from rural areas into medical school. And so while that is definitely something I can provide literature on, I think from a professional standpoint, it's part of this recruitment and retention piece goes back to equity and making sure that people have the ability to get educated. And without that, we're not going to be able to build up that healthcare workforce. So it's one of those things where I feel like the issue of rural recruitment and retention is it's so layered, but that we can all work together to at least make a difference in our own specific arenas as we see them come out.
Great, great, thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I have heard about. And actually, most of the things that I have heard, these 2 points that you mentioned, the one about that people who maintain in rural, or they are from rural, or they have trained in rural. I already have heard about it before, but I have never read it or in a scientific article. Do you know any material that we could read it?
Yeah, absolutely. I will post some of that to the I will post it to either here or the Twitter. I can do that in just a minute.
Okay, great, great. Thank you very much. So guys, we are getting close to our end of the Rural Cafe. So I would like to ask each of you to say your last words and say what you thought about these rural, and maybe one last question maybe as well. I don't know if you have anything from Twitter or Facebook. Girls, if you have, you can add now as well. So Amber, would you like to start our closing?
Yeah, sure. I haven't got any questions from Twitter, but statements that are basically saying what we've been talking about, which is to encourage more medical students to train in rural. Um, and one quote that I think is really nice that says, "Equity in rural communities is equity for all communities." To end on. So if we do some work for rural communities, everyone will benefit in the end.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Karini, would you like to?
So thank you everyone for joining us and participating in this Café. I think is very important. We discuss more about that and try to found some ways for improve our rural areas and the equity in rural areas. And I think it's very important this space which we can share with experienced doctors, young doctors, and also with students for think about and improve this in our countries. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much. Yuri, would you like to say something to the end?
Thanks a lot for the opportunity of joining you. It was my first time, and I hope to participate from now on. And try to get some material to start this kind of discussions in my university to make more people interested in it. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Hello, Roger. I don't know, you are arriving now, but actually we are getting close to the end of the cafe. But could you please introduce yourself and add something to us?
Oh, as it comes to the end, I must have had the time wrong.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. It have already happened to me once because of the different times from the world. But yeah, please add something because it's an honor for us to have you. And please add something.
I'm not sure what to add because I haven't heard what other people have said. Sorry about getting the time wrong. I thought it was meant to be Greenwich Mean Time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so tell me give me a quick summary of what you've been talking about, and then I'll add a comment.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Just a second. Can I ask you, Roger, to mute your mic while I speak, or because of the echo? Perfect, thank you. So today we were talking about rural equity. We started introducing ourselves. We have here with me, we have 4 medical students from Brazil. We have Amber, that is also a medical student. She's in the UK, but she's from Caribbean. And we have also, we had Julia, also that she just left. She's from the USA, and she works with the role of trying to recruit and maintain doctors in rural areas. So we were talking about how it's difficult to reach the rural equity because you have to sustain and maintain doctors in rural areas so they may have access to health. And we started talking about lots of things, and it was interesting. I was saying that it was interesting that we talked a little bit about lots of pieces of previous rural cafes. We talked a little bit about the importance of increasing rural activities during the graduation. We talked about the importance of having a good family medicine training, and Karini add that here in Brazil we don't have a specific training for rural. She had an opportunity in Australia where she saw that there they had a specific training for people who wanted to work in rural. So we were talking about the importance of the quality of the training as well. And then we were talking about how it's difficult for us and for everything to show people that you may have quality of life in rural areas as well, and how to maintain people there. So we talked a little bit of how we can help it as young doctors or experienced doctors or medical students. And we were asking for some docs movies or documentaries or articles for us to read and to get arguments to try to increase these rural activities during the graduation. And also talking about it, I just remembered now the cafe that we had with the participation of Sarah Strasser, and where she talked about the amazing rural experiences that she has in the university where she works. So this was a little bit what we talked today, and we would be really happy to have some of your comments. What do you think that, in your opinion, could be the most important things to reach the rural equity? We talked a little bit about laws and policies as well. Like here in Brazil, we have policies for indigenous people, rural people, and these minorities. But the theory is unfortunately really different from practice. So how it's difficult to put these policies on practice. So I think it was a little bit of it. Could you understand a little bit? Do you feel comfortable now to say something? And I think that you may not didn't introduce yourself, so please do that if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you. Sure. Again, apologies for joining late. So my name is Roger Strasser. My background is as a rural GP, family doctor in Australia. However, in 2002, I moved from Australia to Canada and have been involved since 2002 in developing and then implementing a new medical school in Northern Ontario. So I'm the Dean and the CEO of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. We accepted our first students in 2005, and so we've been functioning as a School of Medicine for 12 years. So that's who I am, and I'm speaking to you today from Northern Ontario in Canada. I understood the topic was about health, was about equity. It sounds like you really talked about equity of access to students and young doctors to rural practice, experiences in rural practice, and maybe I'll come back to that. But if I just talk about the concept of equity first, because I think it's quite important to make the distinction between the concept of equity and equality. And often this is presented visually with there's a sporting event over the fence, and if people are treated equally, they all have the same shape and size boxes to stand on, but the short people can't see over the fence even with the same size. So they're treated equally, but in order to be able to see over the fence, they need a bigger box to be able to see over the fence. So that's equity. Now, how that translates into rural health and rural practice is that really around the world. Oh, here we are. That's the picture. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. How that translates into rural health and rural practice is that really everywhere in the world, the health status of people living in remote and rural communities is worse than people in the big cities. And so in order to improve to achieve health equity, there should be actually more resources, more money, more people, more services in rural and remote areas it's the equivalent of the bigger box to achieve health equity. So that's the concept of equity and the relevance to rural health and rural practice. But as you pointed out, even as medical students and young doctors, there isn't equity of access to clinical experience and education in and about rural practice. And so I think that is a major challenge that needs to be addressed. In the case of Northern Ontario School of Medicine, we started from the beginning with what's called a social accountability mandate. So that's a commitment to achieve health equity, to actually improve the health of the people in Northern Ontario to the point where their health is equivalent to the health of people in the big cities, like in Toronto. And recently, there was a report published just a couple of months ago that showed that a very, very hard measure of health shows that the rate of premature death of people in Northern Ontario is significantly higher than people in the southern part of Ontario, and that over the years the rate of premature death has been reduced both in the north and the south, but the rate at which the reduction has occurred has been the same for both. So proportionally, the gap has got bigger. That's the kind of challenge that I'm talking about. And in Northern Ontario, with our social accountability mandate, the focus is on improving the health of people. And our education and training programs are based on research evidence that shows that the 3 factors most strongly associated with going into rural practice after education and training are, first of all, a rural upbringing, that's having grown up in a rural area. The second factor is positive clinical and educational experiences as undergraduates, as part of the undergraduate medical education. And the third factor is after graduation, training of the new graduates that prepares them to practice in the rural setting. And so we do all of that in Northern Ontario. We actually have interventions that encourage high school students to see health as a potential, rural high school students to see health as a career direction for them, encourage them to get to stay with education and to get the grades to go into university, into medical school. And then once we have a selection admissions process that favors applicants from Northern Ontario, from similar remote rural community backgrounds. 92% of our medical students have grown up in Northern Ontario, and the other 8% come from remote and rural parts of the rest of Canada. So that's very different from other medical schools in Canada and anywhere else, really. And then our medical education program is what we call distributed community engaged learning. So our students have a lot of their clinical learning in remote and rural communities right across Northern Ontario. We have over 90 sites where our students may undertake part of the clinical learning. And we have what we call community engagement, which means that the communities are actively involved. There's active community participation in the development and delivery of our programs and supporting the students when they're in those communities. And then after graduation, we have postgraduate education, which includes training for the graduates. Say take the example of family medicine training, where the graduates are living in one of the rural communities in Northern Ontario and do most of their training, and then do rotations maybe to the bigger centres for some of their training. So we're preparing our graduates to practice in the rural setting, and that's working very well. So if you look at our graduates who did their undergraduate and then their postgraduate, the residency training in Northern Ontario, 94% of them are practicing in Northern Ontario, including about a third of those, that's 33%, in the remote and rural communities. So that's the way that we've gone about addressing the issue of equity of access to medical education for people in rural and remote communities, and then education programs that prepare our students and our graduates to practice in rural communities and actually actively involve the rural communities in those programs. And it's having a positive impact on those communities, not only in terms of doctors, and in fact we're involved in other health professional education, but doctors and other health professionals providing care in these communities, but it also has had a positive effect on the communities in terms of economic impact. So that we did a study last year, repeated a previous study that showed that in 2016 there was over $100 million of new economic activity attributable to the existence of the medical school, and that's on a budget of $43 million. So more than 2-for-1 multiplier effect in terms of the economic development impact. And that's benefit including the smaller communities, not just the sort of larger population centres. So that's what we do in Northern Ontario, and we're definitely driven by our social accountability mandate, which is focused on achieving health equity.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Thank you for bringing this. Just a moment. Thank you for bringing this concept. I don't know if everyone saw it before. This is the image that Roger was talking about. And it's absolutely important. At the beginning, I just read a little piece of definition of equity from World Health Organization, but we didn't make this definition, this difference between equity and equality. So thank you for bringing that. And we were talking about a lot about the training just because of what you said, that we knew that in order to increase the equity and increase the access in rural areas, we must retain doctors there. So that's why I believe that we were talking about more how to retain doctors there. And one of the strategies is to increase the rural activities during the graduation. What I would like to ask you, Roger, is could you repeat the three reasons that you were saying before? Julia, that just left, that she's from the USA, she mentioned the two first of them, the fact that the main reasons that retain a doctor in rural areas is people who were born in rural areas. So as you said, and she said before as well, we must increase the opportunity for rural people to get graduation courses. And the second reason about increasing the rural activities, because the second reason that retain people is students who get access to rural activities and experiences during the graduation. But I didn't understand really well your third reason for and third point to retain doctors in rural. So I would like to ask you to explain it again, if you don't mind, and uh, explain it. And if you have any material or document or article that is about these reasons, that have evidences or everything, if you can share it with us, we are really thankful. Sorry, your mic is off, so we are not listening to you.
Yeah, I'll have to work out how to share it through this medium, but I'll speak first, and then I'm not sure how I can share it, but I'll work out how to do that and share some documents with you. So the third factor, I just want to repeat the second factor a bit more strongly. So the issue is not just having learning experience in a rural setting, but having it set up in a way that's a positive experience. Historically, in many countries, including Australia and Canada and the United States, there were times when medical students were sent to rural, usually regional base hospitals, and there was a feeling that the students had was that this was a way of getting them out from underfoot in the teaching hospital, and that they were missing out on important learning by being away from the teaching hospital. So it was a negative experience for them. It's important to be set up as a positive experience where the students are supported. They're not financially out of pocket. They have a pleasant place to stay, and the doctors and the other health workforce members that they're attached to are friendly and welcoming to them. And ultimately, not just the medical and health community, but also the wider community. So that's where the community engagement is important for medical students. So that's the second factor. The third factor is after graduation is postgraduate education, residency training that prepares the doctor to practice in the rural setting, which means most of the training happens in the rural setting. So if we're talking about family medicine, general practice, that the training is based in rural community settings. In most countries, apart from the United States and Canada, after you graduate, you do a year or 2 years as an intern, or sometimes called foundation years, and then you go into training, postgraduate training. And what's been found in Australia is if those 2 years are not also part of a pathway that prepares a doctor to practice rurally, they may find themselves kind of caught up in the urban setting, because of life circumstances, like they develop a relationship with someone who becomes their life partner who's city based, or the clinical learning, the so-called hidden curriculum is actually the message is, well, you're too good to be a GP or a family doctor, and certainly too good to be a rural doctor. You should stay in the city. So it's important that there's a continuous pathway, recruiting students who've grown up in a rural area, as you said, having positive clinical experiences in the rural setting as students, and then after they graduate, continue the pathway as junior doctors, and then in their training to practice in the rural setting. So the third factor is specific family medicine GP training that prepares the graduate to practice in the rural setting. And I'll send you some, I'll share some documents that outline that for you.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you can, if you feel comfortable, you may try to share them on our Facebook event. You can try to post it as a post, as a publication there. But anyway, we can talk offline and try to get this material. Caio, are you still there? Would you like to say something to the end of this cafe?
Yes, I'm here, and this cafe was amazing to make us discuss some of the most important things about rural, about how we need to give the population who needs more health care. And this discussion is amazing to try and give us information, material to show on our universities, to convince, to try and make people believe in rural. And it will be a challenge, and a good challenge, to try and share this discussion in my university and to those other friends who are medical students around Brazil. It's amazing.
Okay, thank you. Yuri, would you like to say something about the link that you put here?
I just shared it because there are some friends going in those two projects. The first one, the Canudos, it's a project from the University of São Paulo that take students, medical students, and other healthcare students to Canudos. It's in the rural area of Bahia, and they stay there. It's a kind of extension. They stay there for 10 days or 2 weeks. A friend of mine just came back. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to her to see how it was. And the other one, it's the Rondon that started in the military government, I think, and they still there are many universities that hold this kind of program, and I think that one of the biggest is the UDESC one in Santa Catarina. I think that they've got some kind of what can I say, connection with my university, because there is a teacher here, a professor that takes a lot of students there, and I think that it's a good opportunity to see how it's done in those projects, in those villages. We could try just to share with you if you didn't know about it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for adding that. Yeah, I was going to say that the experience that Karini mentioned before when she was to POE, it was with the Hondong project, and yeah, that's great. And I think that it's also a tool for us, for medical students here in Brazil, to increase these rural activities. And I think that it's really positive because everyone who participates in these activities comes back absolutely happy and satisfied. Um, Roger, I had clicked on the two links that you sent, and it's asking for permission, so I asked for it. So if you can accept it later, it's okay, and then I can share with people. So guys, we are close to the end. We have like 5 minutes. Roger, would you like to add something to the end of it? And I think that all of us, we have already mentioned, so please feel free.
Yes, thanks. Well, again, apologies for being late. I don't see where your request is for me to. I've just uploaded links to 2 documents. I'm not sure where the permission thing is, but anyway, I think this is a very important topic that you've been discussing, and great that you've had the opportunity to share your experiences. And I hope that my late intervention has been useful and helpful to you, and that you find the articles that I've uploaded of interest as well.
Yeah, definitely, it helped us, and it added a lot. And I just would like to I don't know how to say this in English, but I would like to thank you and compliment, maybe, I don't know, to say that you, if you, I believe that you are a teacher or a professor and you have a really great explanation speech. So you just came to perfectly end our Rural Cafe, and you summarized in a really clearly way everything that we had discussed, and now we have some more material to strong our arguments. So it was really perfect. Thank you very much for joining us, Roger, and thank you, Amber and Karini, for coordinating Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, Caio and Yuri, for participating on it. Caio has already participated in a live um, version that we had in Rio, but I believe that with the online structure, it was the first time as Yuri. So I hope that all of you have enjoyed it. And we can continue our discussion on Twitter or Facebook. And please feel all invited to our next cafe. You can click and like our page on Facebook, and every time we have a new event, we put some new information there. So thank you very much for participating, and see you soon. Bye bye. Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, Amber.
Bye bye.
Bye, Roger. Thank you very much.